Today on the show, we have a true master of authentic connection joining us, Ricky Steele, the author of The Heart of Networking. This is the third edition. Ricky is renowned for taking networking beyond the superficial, turning it into a genuine act of building community, fostering relationships, and lifting others up. He has decades of experience and a powerful philosophy grounded in helping others succeed. Ricky exemplifies what it means to lead with heart in a world that often focuses on the transactional. I want you to get ready to be inspired to network, not just with the goal of making contacts, but with the intent of making a difference. And so please join me in welcoming Ricky Steele.
Lisa, thank you very, very much. What a kind introduction. It's been a pleasure getting to know you over the last year or so and following you. Everything I could say today could probably be summed up in your most recent podcast. I think it was the 150th episode, where I thought you did a brilliant job of starting with Networking 101 and building all the way up. So hopefully I can add something to the wisdom you've already shared.
Well, Ricky, there was a method to my madness. Is I want to give people the foundational logistics. But the thing that you bring to the table, and what has impressed me so much about you, is every interaction that I've had with you, whether it is following your post on LinkedIn or some of the other social media channels, which, by the way, we'll put all of those in the show notes. People can connect with you, but also just how you go above and beyond to be very relational in a digital world that sometimes that we forget that. So as we get started here, you often describe networking as an art form that is rooted in authentic human connection. What do you see as the biggest misconception people have about networking?
A variety of issues, but one of the main ones is that networking is about the attempt to sell something to somebody. That is the last thing networking is all about. The only reason to network is to create a relationship with another human being. And if you create a relationship that's built upon trust and empathy and kindness, more often than not, you're going to create a relationship that may produce some business, an introduction, an opportunity, or you may be able to help the other individual in some way. So to me, the most important thing about networking is to understand that it's not about selling or doing anything to or with anybody. It's about creating a relationship. And again, relationships are all we need in this world. We are human beings. And I think it was Barbara Streisand sang in a movie, Funny Girl, back in the 60s, people who need people are the luckiest people on this earth. We need each other. We crave for each other. And I don't care how introverted you may be, introverted people need to be around other introverted people. So to me, the joy of living is meeting a new individual. The second thing is the most important person you're ever going to meet is the very next person that you meet. So you got to be in the moment. If you're in a room and you are networking or trying to meet some people or this, that, and the other, and you meet someone who spends most of his time chatting with you, looking around the room, trying to see if perhaps there's someone they deem to be more important than you are, they'll never be a good networker. They'll never even be a good friend. So to me, it's about authenticity, kindness, and again, I'm a person that's built upon a faith that I learned as a child. I believe that we are here to serve one another, and we're here to love one another. And in business, that's a squishy term, but I do believe that loving and liking and caring for people is what creates authentic relationships. And, it's worked for, I'm 72 years old, so I've been doing this since I was probably 16 or 17. And I learned from my dad, who was one of the most authentic, kind people, very successful business executive. But he was known for, at his funeral in 2002, the number of people I never laid eyes on who came up to me and said, let me tell you about the time your dad got me out of jail, or the time your dad loaned me some money when I didn't have a nickel to buy my family some groceries, little things like that. So to me, networking is about relationship creation and then letting it play on, going forward.
Yes, I share that. I share that same type of feeling about my father too, Ricky. At his at his visitation, I saw people that I had never met before and heard similar stories. But what that tells us is our relationships are not always what happens at the networking event. It's also what happens surrounding that networking event and other things that you pour into it. So many people are looking at networking just as going in, and this is what I thought when I first started my business. A mentor suggested that, oh, you're going to have to go networking. Because up until that point, my thought of networking was going to a luncheon and sitting at a table with people I didn't know, talking about things I wasn't sure of talking about, and then collecting business cards and walking away. And I think a lot of people either think, oh, I'm collecting business cards, or these people are my sales prospects. But let's look at how we could maybe enter a networking event that contrast with this transactional view. So I'm going to go a little bit off to the side here and ask, when we go into a networking event, how can we look at it in a different way than collecting those business cards or just meeting a list of people?
Well, it's a process. The root word of networking is work. If you're not willing to do the work, you're not going to be very good at networking. I know a lot of people in this old world that tell me, Ricky, I'm not afraid of hard working. When I hear that, I realize I'm talking to somebody that's never really done any. If you're going to be willing to work hard, you're going to be successful at networking. But if you're not going to be successful. And that means a number of things. If I'm going to a meeting and there's a registration, I register early. And a lot of organizations will then post the names of the people who also register. So before I ever go to the event, that evening or that day before, whatever, I'll scan and see, who do I know that's going to be there? Who do I know the name of that I read in the Atlanta Business Chronicle or Atlanta Journal-Constitution or somewhere on a blog or a post, a podcast? Who's going to be there that I don't know that I am dying to meet or would like to meet? How I can help them or serve them or whatever the case might be. Oftentimes I get to a meeting and I find somebody that I've been wanting to meet forever and they don't know me from Adam's house cat. And so I'll start the conversation and figure out a way to get in front of them. And I'll say, Bob, Sue, Mary, whatever the case might be, I'm Ricky Steele. I've always wanted to meet you. I read an article about you a while back in the Atlanta Business Chronicle. The work you did on the Boys and Girls Clubs was fantastic. And, I love to see your son is a big soccer player or whatever the case might be. Within 30 seconds, I have turned the conversation into him sharing or her sharing her life and her story. And everyone enjoys talking about their life, their family, and their friends. And the fact that you're interested in them, you're not playing them. If you try to play them and manipulate, you're going to be found out every single time. But I do have a passionate desire to know about their wife, their husband, their child, the fact they love Willie Nelson or Snoop Dogg. Doesn't matter. Whatever they're into, I want to learn more about. And so you start that way with authenticity. And you remember the second part of the equation is we all have to have an elevator pitch. Everybody knows what an elevator pitch is. And you better have a 1.5 minute elevator pitch. So when it comes to the person turns the table and says, well, tell me a little bit about you. You better have a minute to a minute and a half and be willing to stop and shut up afterwards. I feel like we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should use them proportionately. I want to learn a whole lot more than I want to say. If I leave a conversation and felt like I have told them my life story and what happened in the 3rd grade and the day I got married and this, that, and the other, I wasted a great opportunity to really have a rich conversation and an opportunity to really connect. Now that can change because if someone were to open up about a situation or a problem in their life and you've got something to help, then talk your heart out, and because you're helping them get through a situation that they might be going through. The other point, and it's really before all this, after the working part, but it's networking events start at 4 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, whatever the time might be. If you think that being on time is walking in the door when the meeting starts, then you've missed the greatest opportunity of all. my dad used to tell me 10 minutes early is on time. If you're
Mhm.
going to show up, what do they call it, casually late or whatever, just stay at the office. Do something else. Don't waste your time going there. I want to be there 10, 12 minutes before the event starts. Because if I'm there, most organizations, if they didn't put all the names on their website as to who is going to attend, everyone's got name badges and they're in
Mhm.
alphabetical order. So I will sit there and scan through the list once or twice. So, oh my gosh, Bill's going to be here. Susan's going to be here. Jerry's going to be here. Can't wait to see them. Oh my gracious, John's going to be here. I've wanted to meet him forever and a day. And so I've got a mindset, again, working part of the networking equation. I know that there's going to be some way, shape, or form I'm going to be able to get in front of those people because I'm expecting them to be there.
Mhm.
And anyway, it's just all part of the process. And again, the other thing that I've found is good, and we'll all experience this during the holidays. When you go to an event, a fun event, where's everybody congregating? I don't care if the house is 10,000 square feet, it's got a pool table and a swimming pool and a back area and this, that, and the other. 80% of the people in any event is going to be around the food. They're going to be in the kitchen because
Mhm.
it's around food and hospitality that we create real relationships. So rather than hanging around at the bar or over in the corner or out where everybody's gabbing and telling jokes, I'm going to hang around the food station because it's where people converse. It's where communion is served. It's where communion is held.
Mhm.
So to me, again, it's all part of a process that I didn't make up or learn last weekend. That's something I've been doing for 50 some odd years.
Which is exactly why you are on the show today, as I know you have that wealth of wisdom. And this book is, it just really struck me, Ricky. And I know this is third edition, but to me, the third edition is the best part because you have accumulated all of that knowledge. And this is the takeaways that you have on it. And it's really what we need today. It's not as much, we don't need the logistics as much as what we need as how do we put it into action. And that's what you so beautifully are able to do and articulate. So
Thank you.
yeah, so one thing I also want to call out is the fact that you knew you wanted to meet someone, and it may be somebody that you've been waiting a long time to meet. But the fact that you took the time to go research a little bit about them, to have a connecting point, because you have to think about the person from their end. Oh, I've always wanted to meet you. Then when you tell them why, or you relate something that happened in their life, it's like tossing them a ball. When you toss them the ball, they have something to catch and be able to respond to, instead of saying, oh, I've always wanted to meet you. What are they supposed to say to that, right? Like, you're making it easy to make it part of that conversation. So I really appreciated that.
The other aspect of that is if you see someone at an event that you want to meet and they're crowded by a lot of people because any important person that's just IPO'd a company or raised 100 million in venture or whatever the case might be, at least in the technology world where I live a lot of the time, they're going to have a crowd around them. If I don't know them already, there's a good chance I'm going to know one of the 10 people standing around them.
Mhm.
At that some point, I'll try to cut that person off from the herd, get them over by the food station or the bar and say, by the way, I see that you're good friends with Sam. Sometime during tonight, if you could give me a warm introduction, that would mean a whole lot to me. And that's
Mhm.
another way to get in the door. And again, by using the elevator pitch, at some point, I will turn the conversation and say, that's enough about me. I really appreciate you asking. I'd love to have a cup of coffee with you. Would it be okay if I called your assistant in the morning or sent them an email to try to get on your schedule in the next couple of weeks? I have only had one or two people in 50 years say, no, no, hell no, don't call me. Don't ever come see me. I don't want to look at your ugly face ever again. It just doesn't happen. Almost every single time they say, well, that's very kind, because you're allowing them to get away from you because
Mhm.
they've got 12 other people waiting to say hello to them, give them a card, whatever the case might be, probably improperly. And then they'll try to beg as much time as they can while they're standing there, which will end up souring their opportunity of creating a
Mhm.
relationship. And I got away as quickly as I could and made an appointment and had coffee or breakfast or something with them over the next 2 or 3 weeks. And more often than not, magic happens.
Yeah, that's great. It's really being respectful of the other person and what they need. So, yeah, I really appreciate that. So, since you have been networking for quite a while, Ricky, I'd love to know how you've seen networking change from when you first started. How have you evolved to what you see now? Are people doing it differently? How have you shifted in that process?
That's kind of a two-part question. The
Yeah.
first, the easy part would be social media. Social
Mhm.
media has changed the game. I was one of the first, I think, several hundred, maybe thousand people on LinkedIn back in
Mhm.
1990, late 94, early 95. And if I'd had LinkedIn when I was starting my career in 1972, 73, I wouldn't be on this podcast today. I'd be laying on the beach in Bimini or somewhere or another, Tahiti, with millions and millions of dollars because it was such a game changer, as
Mhm.
has been Facebook and Twitter and some of the other social media channels. We can learn more about somebody in 5 minutes than it used to take me 25 conversations over 12 meetings
Mhm.
and lunches to learn. I mean, everybody has something in between Google and Hoover's and all the different search engines. You can find just about stuff that the mama doesn't know about them. And again, you're not using that to play someone. You're using that to create a relationship with someone. And if I know somebody's a big Georgia Bulldog or Georgia Tech fan, and I've got 2 tickets to see the two of the teams play as they did last Friday night in one of the greatest games I've ever witnessed, either team should have won that game or could have won that game. And I offer the tickets to them, say, by the way, I understand you're a Georgia Tech graduate and you even played a ball at Georgia Tech. I got 2 tickets to the Georgia game. Having that tidbit of information
Mhm.
starts a relationship that, again, because you cared enough about them to do the research and you know something about them, you showed them that you're not just there to sell them something. The last thing I want somebody to think is I'm a salesperson, and I've been a salesperson for 55, 60 years, but I'm not a salesperson. I'm a relationship guy. I want the people that I do business with to look at me first as their friend. And if I'm their friend, they don't care what my price is. They don't care what
Mhm.
really whether I'm the best or the biggest or this, that, and the other. They care that I care about them. I think Norman Vincent Peale said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I
Mhm.
think you could add the caveat of how much you care about them. If you care about the people in your network or in your circle of influence, you're going to have more business you can say grace over. And if you don't do business with that person, they're going to refer you to 3 people that they know. So again, it's a big circle, but I think it's all revolved around caring and passion and love and all the other gooey words that we don't like to use in business, but they make a difference, in my opinion.
Yes, and I think in business we put on this front, there's all these things we're supposed to do, but at the end of the day, we're human to human is what it is. It may be B2B, but it's actually H to H. It's human to human
No question.
doing business. And so I really appreciate that. So, Ricky, you talk about leading with generosity. I would love to know, how can someone be of service to others in networking when they're not in a position of power or influence?
Well, variety of answers to that question, but the biggest one is getting involved with things that other people are involved with.
Mm.
And by using LinkedIn and Facebook and other things, you can find out what someone cares about. And if someone, I've got a lot of friends who uh, had cancer at some point or another, and a lot of people, a lot of women who had breast cancer. Of course, men have it as well, but more often women. And so, you get involved with Susan G. Komen, or you get involved with the American Cancer Society on these issues. And I did not know anyone very close to me at one point that had gone through that process. And yet I started reading about it and then met someone and ended up getting invited to be in the Real Men Wear Pink back in, I think, 2015, 16. And the doors that opened became just, again, it was an issue that was very, very important. And later, within a month or 2 months after my campaign finished, someone very close to me in my family was diagnosed with breast cancer and went through that whole cycle. So you just never know. Keep your eyes open. But if someone's involved in whether it's cancer or AIDS awareness, or like the Jerusalem House here in Atlanta, or hunger. Hunger is a big issue I've been involved in for 40 years now. And if you find something they're interested in, say, by the way, I read that you were involved in the Atlanta Community Food Bank. I've been a volunteer there for a long time. Why don't we find some time that we're both going to be down there, and let's go down there together and maybe, get a drink before or afterwards or something like that. You put yourself, that doesn't cost anything to make that deal. If you take them out for a drink afterwards, that's going to cost you $10 or $20 or whatever, depending upon how long you stay, of course. But nonetheless, you create a reason to get together, and based upon something that they enjoy. Again, if they're Georgia Tech fans and you got tickets to a game, or Georgia or the Hawks or the Falcons or whatever, I got 2 tickets to the Falcons. I see that you follow the Falcons based upon what you put on Facebook on a regular basis. I got tickets to see the playoff game in a couple of weeks. Would you like to go? Well, there's no question they want to go. And so you take them, and you don't talk business. You talk about the running back. I'm not a big Falcons fan or pro football fan. I like college football. But you talk about the running back, or you talk about the play. You don't talk about, by the way, my product or service will do this, that, and the other for you. Nobody wants to go to a ball game and hear that shenanigans. They want to be in the experience because you're at a football game. And so you create, and that doesn't cost a great deal of money. And again, having the power of the influence, being a big name in the Business Chronicle or the Journal-Constitution on a regular basis, is not what makes you a big name. What makes you a big name is the amount of relationships and the doors that you can open because you were there for another individual. And it spirals from there forward.
Yeah, and some really great suggestions on how to provide value, but it's really being interested in that other person. What do they care about? What's important to them? And showing them tangible ways that you have made that effort to do so. So I really appreciate that, Ricky. So, we build this network, okay? So we start meeting people. I'm doing a number of LinkedIn posts this week, and one thing over the last week is I cleaned out my desk, and I found all of these business cards I'd collected pre-pandemic, and I actually took a picture for one of my posts. So by the time this airs, you probably can go on LinkedIn and see that. But I was dumbfounded at the number of business cards I had, and I thought, I wonder how many of these people I still stay in touch with, or even how many people are in business. So with that all being said, I can imagine your network is just so very large. And so my question to you is, there are people that we want to continue to stay in touch with. How do you go about, what are some strategies you use to stay in touch with your network in a meaningful way, especially as our contacts grow over time?
Again, it's building a relationship. I have 8,700, 900, something another, a little less than 9,000 first-degree LinkedIn connections. I have had breakfast, lunch, dinner, or cocktails with 5,000 of them over the last 30 years. I do not very often accept a LinkedIn request from somebody that I do not know. They would either have to have 17 or 20 first connections to me of people that I know and respect, or they'd have to work for a company that I currently serve or I would like to serve. If they're, John Jones from Tupelo and they work at some place that I've never heard of, and they have no connection to me whatsoever, I not only do not accept their request, I block them because there's nothing that I think I can do to help them. And if I can't help them, why do I want them as part of my network? It's about evaluating how you can be of service to others. And so to me, that's a big part of it. The second part of that would be, how do I stay in contact with them continuously? It's again, networking. So the working part is, I read 3 or 4 newspapers every day. I've got a subscription to the New York Times. I had one to the Washington Post until most recently when I canceled it, but that's another story. But I've got the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I got the Atlanta Business Chronicle. I do a number of podcasts. I do a number of I guess, newsletters or what have you. And so I'm constantly reading. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen an article in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or something where I thought, oh my gosh, Jim over at so-and-so company that could be helpful to him. And I
Mhm.
cut and paste it, or I send the link, and an hour later he calls me back and says, "Oh my gosh, you can't even imagine how much that article has helped me. I've already sent it to everybody on my team, and we're going to implement that process or procedure or buy that piece of equipment or whatever the case might be." So the way and they say, "I can't believe you thought about me in that." Well,
Mhm.
believe it, because I know you, I know what you need, and I know what would be of help to you, or at least I think that I know what would be of help to you. And so the more you stay in focus with who your friends are, who your relationships are, who your contacts are, and what's going on in their life, then the
Mhm.
more often I have a lot of friends, as you know, and it's in the third book. We lost our son in 2017,
Mhm.
33 years old. It crushed our lives. We're still regrouping from it. I knew two other families who had lost a child when that happened. When you lose a child, you find your network expands. I now know dozens of people who've lost their child. Not every day, but at least once a week, I see something posted about depression, suicide, losing a child, emotional impact, et cetera, et cetera. And I cut and paste it and send it to 4 or 5 different people who've kind of become on my inner circle, and folks that we, talk together, we laugh together, we cry together, we pray together, we do everything we can to build each other up, because we're all hurting very, very badly. And again, that's the way you stay in contact with people. If I know somebody's a Willie Nelson fan, or again, Snoop Dogg, or the Beatles, or I guess the Beatles don't play quite much as anymore, but I am dating myself a tad there. But anyway, the Eagles are going to be at the Sphere in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
If I've got a friend in Las Vegas that can get tickets to most anything. If I can get you 2 tickets to see the Eagles in the Sphere in April, where they just announced 2 more dates, then I pretty much have listened to what you think is important and created an opportunity for you. Whether I buy the tickets or just turn them on to them, tickets that are impossible to buy in the great seats, et cetera, et cetera. So
Mhm.
again, it's being, I guess it's being connected, being tuned in, being listening for opportunities. I guess if you sat in your own cocoon and said, "I don't give a damn about anybody or anything, I just need to sell something," you
Mhm.
may or may not sell something, but I tell you what, you're not going to sell with the same kind of enthusiasm or passion as most anybody that I do business with or want to do business with. When I was a young kid, learning a little bit about selling and taking sales courses, we were all taught that the ABCs of selling was always be closing, always be
Mhm.
closing. And the movie Glengarry Glen Ross, which was a great movie, but it kind of told that whole story. I learned over the last 50 years, and even, towards the first part of those 50 years, because watching my dad and others in business, the true ABCs of selling is always be caring. Because
Mm.
if you're always caring about the other individual, you're going to create a connection that's going to be very, very powerful. And a lot of people that do business with me don't call me about, "Ricky, can you sell me this at the cheapest price? Ricky, can you do this at the cheapest price? Ricky, can you cut the price?" It's, "Ricky, I'm going to do business with you because I trust you."
Mhm.
That's how to build a relationship and a network that is impossible to not be successful.
Yes, and I think you bring up a really great point, because especially when we're in a day where there's a lot of emphasis on LinkedIn. And I even saw a post this morning, and I've had conversations with so many people that talk about, I post, but I don't get any business from it. It's not the expertise that you're sharing, it's the being in front of someone to have the next conversation, to develop that relationship that you're talking about, that really makes that impact, Ricky. It's people know what you sell when you network, like you eventually have a conversation about what you do, but it's those relationships that allow that door to open, to build that trust. So I really, really appreciate that.
If you post something on LinkedIn to make a sale, save the time that you're going to take to type it. Just
Yeah.
don't do it. Just go get coffee at Starbucks. Maybe you'll bump into somebody who'll buy something from you. Don't waste your time doing that. That's not what salesmanship is about. Relationship is what opens the door to making sales, and always be caring about that other person, and you've got a greater chance of success. Gosh knows, that's just seems so simple, but common sense is not so common anymore.
No, it isn't. It isn't. So, you've seen a lot of people at networking events. I know I've seen you over the last year, probably at 3 or 4 different networking events that we happen to be at the same time. I know you've got a pretty full calendar. Even before we jumped on, you talked about several events that you have going on this week. So, what is a behavior that you have seen at networking events time and time again that makes someone what you would classify as a poor networker?
Again, it's all about me. I actually had this happen once, long, long time ago, and I hate to tell the story, but it was just so funny. I had someone in the middle of a conversation with 3 of us sitting there chatting, and this person had the audacity to look at the other person who was kind of hogging the conversation and say, "Enough about you. Let me tell you about me." And I thought,
Oh my.
you got to be kidding me. And needless to say, the other person nor I was particularly impressed with that particular comeback. And I can't even tell you the person's name because I'm not sure I ever laid eyes on him again. I may have avoided him at every event going forward. Um, Again, the most important person you're ever going to meet is the next person in front of you. So you treat them that way. Again, going back to the 2 ears and 1 mouth, you should learn a lot more about them than ever going to learn about you, especially in the first conversation. So to me, that's one thing. The second thing is anyone that will besmirch another human being in a conversation with people they don't know or people that are not going to be great networkers. We all have issues in our lives. We've all made mistakes. We've all done things we wish we had not done. But to bring that up in a conversation or to try to leverage yourself about why your product or your situation is so much better than the other person because this person did that or this person did the other thing, that's a losing strategy. Because people know that if you're willing to gossip and backbite people that are not standing there in front of you, they're going to do it to you as soon as you walk away from the conversation. So, so that's another no-no. Another thing that can get you into real trouble is visiting the bar more often than the food station. And I've seen people, act like it's a fraternity party at a networking event. And I enjoy having a good time as much as anyone. And I enjoy my friends. I enjoy having a glass of wine or 3, and I enjoy having a good time. But, when you get past that point where you're starting to push the envelope on things you say and the way you act or what have you, then that's a mistake. So again, there's no one little thing, but it's 100 little things that are either going to make you successful or put a chain around your neck that's going to keep you from being as successful as you could have if you just had some better practices. And there's 1,000 books that would articulate this much better than I ever could. But again, it's just be smart.
Yeah, and being smart about it. So talking about, the things to do in these books, but what makes your book so much different, Ricky, and why I really enjoyed it was the fact that you give examples. You have met a lot of people, you have won a lot of awards, you've done a lot of volunteering, really putting yourself out there in situations that make it easy to do network. But could you maybe share a story with us about a time when maybe an unexpected act of kindness within your network led to an incredible opportunity?
Gracious alive. Stories of this nature make me uncomfortable because 2 people are in it, and sometimes they make me look better than I really am. And I'm fortunate that I have a great wife who is able to help me a great deal. She tells me often that there's no reason in me being humble because I'm not that good. And I think she's really, really truthful in that. But so I have a hard time with some of that. But I guess I'm not the best example, but the number of people that have come to me 2 weeks later, 6 weeks later, or a year later, or last night I got an email from a person that I had helped in something that they wanted to accomplish. And he says, here it is, Thanksgiving. I want to let you know what you did for me 9 or 10 months ago meant so much to me. And here at Thanksgiving, I just wanted to take the time. I haven't talked to this person in 6 months. And yet they go that's to me the joy. You're winning an award. It's nice for the 30 seconds you're on stage and you get a round of applause and it's nice. because they've recognized something that you've done. But to me, the greater joy comes from an email like that, or phone calls, or things that where you know you had an impact upon someone's life. There have been times where a ticket to a concert, or I used to have a guy that loved to fish, and I'd get him with a fishing guide up at Lake Lanier, and they'd go bass fishing. And the amount of business that came from that was just very, very powerful. I got some other friends that smoke cigars. I've probably spent more money on cigars in Atlanta, Georgia than any other person, and I've never smoked a single one of them. But I know my friends who smoke cigars, and a nice box of Churchills after something that they received, an award, or you read something in the Business Chronicle, and you take them a box of cigars. And I can remember one Saturday afternoon, a fella called me, a big client, a guy that I respect a lot. And he said, "Ricky, I'm sitting here on my boat on Lake Lanier thinking about you." And I thought, well, that's fine. We're going to start dating, or what's the next step in this, brother? And he said, no. He said, "I'm sitting here smoking one of the cigars you gave me after I received this award." And he said, "Just thinking about what a nice person you are." And they went on and on. But, anyway, just that's what brings joy in life. We have a finite period on this earth, maybe 2 years, maybe 90 years, maybe 100 years. I'm 72. Maybe I have another year. Maybe I have another 20 years. But each day is precious. It's the precious present. And having interchanges like that are what make life. No one's going to be sitting on their deathbed, sitting there thinking, "God, if I could just close one more sale. Gosh, if I could just win one more award." You're going to be sitting there with your family, perhaps some friends, and thinking about how perhaps you accomplish what God put you on this earth to accomplish. And I believe he put us on this earth to accomplish servanthood, for us to serve one another in as powerful a way as we can. I was very fortunate. My book tells this story. All three books tell the same story of something that happened to me when I was 14 or 15 years old on a bus trip from Columbus, Georgia, where I grew up, to Atlanta. And I knew that God had called me, regardless of what my business card said, regardless of what industry I was in. And I've been in 10 different industries. I've started 10 different companies, and I've worked for companies as big as Delta Airlines and as small as little startups. But what I knew, that my job title was to be a servant, not in some woe is me type sort of way, but hopefully as someone that tries to always put the other person's needs or wants ahead of my own needs and wants. And I found when I've been able to accomplish that, gosh, it's so beautiful and so wonderful. And again, if you do it, or if you do anything to manipulate or try to get business, you'll find it's not going to work out so well. You got to do it because it's the passion that you have for another human being that God put somehow in your life, and then good things can perhaps happen. But if you give someone a gift, whether it's a compliment or tickets to a ball game or good seats at whatever, if you give somebody a gift expecting something in return, that's not a gift. That's a bribe. That's a down payment on something that you expect later. And more often than not, you're going to be disappointed because it's not going to work out the way you hoped it was when you started manipulating. If you give a gift without expecting anything in return, you're never going to be disappointed. And more often than not, or fairly often, you're going to get a bonus out of it that's going to be above and beyond anything you could have believed if you'd have tried to cook up some scheme or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, I think that's really true. Whenever you go into a conversation or in any interaction and you're looking for a particular outcome, like, people can feel that. They really can feel that. But when you are giving of yourself and sharing something that you already have, making it that gift, making it about the other person, it really is that always be caring, right? It is that caring piece. So I love that.
I learned that the hard way. I've made some of those mistakes, expecting something in return, and I'm ashamed of myself for having gone down that path a time or two.
But I think, it's something that we all bump into, that we have to find out. And sometimes that we have to, bruise our knees and get skinned elbows and find out, well, that really didn't work. It's a growth opportunity.
Amen.
So, yeah, I know you've got a lot of stories in the book, Ricky. Is there a favorite one you would love to share with us about maybe a profound moment when you had a human connection while you were networking in that networking process?
I thought about that over the last couple of days of if you asked a question like that, how I would answer it. There's a number of these because I'm just I want to hug somebody and squeeze somebody and kiss them on a regular basis, which sometimes you got to curb. But there's one that is in the book. And in the first two books, when I would tell a story, I would say, I got a friend who did this. I got a buddy who did this. I got a client that did this. Because I didn't feel like it was proper to share something about somebody that I didn't have approval for. Mm-hmm. So the third book, I knew it was the last book. And I wrote 4 or 5 stories, and I mailed the stories to each person and said, here's a story from our life together. And if you'll allow me, I'll include it in the book. And if you allow me, I can do it one of 3 ways. I can say, I got a friend that did this, that, or the other. I can use your name, or I'll take it out of the book and it won't be in there at all. In every situation but one, and it's with a person I had lunch with last week, because their son is going through a lot of the same issues that my son went through. It wasn't proper because not that the fellow would ever read the book, but if he did somehow, would not want to embarrass him. But nonetheless, the one that just, I'll probably start crying, but the one that affects me was as a dear friend of mine. Again, the story's in the book. I won't go through the names, but anyway, a dear friend of mine, he and his wife both are great friends. They come to my annual birthday party at the Atlanta Community Food Bank every year, and they've been generous with their finances and this, that, and the other for some of my causes. And I don't know where I saw it on Facebook. I saw it somewhere that his mother passed away. And I told my wife, I said, I'm going to go to his mom's funeral. And I found out it was in, I may not pronounce this right, Defuniak Springs, Florida, which is almost to Destin. And it's about a 3.5 hour drive. And I got up that morning. I didn't talk to the family or anything because there was no reason to have a conversation. I figured they were down there anyway. And so I drove 3.5 hours to Defuniak Springs, and I'm standing outside the church when it's about time to go in, and the family, I guess, proceeded out of the family room and was going into the church, and the wife caught my eye, and she came over to me and she said, Ricky, I knew you would be here. I got tears running down my face. She's got tears running down her face. Her husband comes over, who had lost his mom, hugged, and that beats every award that I've been privileged and fortunate to win, every deal I've sold, $1 million deal or a $12 deal. That is what our life was called to do. And again, they're dear friends. And that story is a story that will carry in my heart until the day that I leave this earth and go elsewhere. So that's one example of something. Again, financially, it didn't beat a nickel other than I bought 2 tanks of gas to get to Defuniak Springs and back. But afterwards, they had a buffet lunch, and I never seen so many delicious vegetables and pies and cakes that everybody from the church, again, it's a country town, farmers, they brought some good groceries. Man, oh man, that was a great meal. And I drove back that afternoon and was still home close to dinner time. So there's a whole section in the book about attending funerals. I attend more funerals than most funeral parlor directors because when someone loses a family member, that's a hard experience. And again, whether I've ever met the family member or not, it makes no difference. I'm there for that individual, for him or her, or even the kids or whatever the case might be. And there were so many people that came to my mom and dad's funeral that I didn't know. And I thought, I'm going to practice that. I don't think I did it before they passed in 2002. But I go to lots of funerals because it's to me, it's a privilege.
Yes. And I think when you have been through that on the other side, you see the value of it. You feel that experience, and there's nothing that's quite like it. So Ricky, we talked about those stories that are in the book. I'd really love to speak a little bit about the book, The Heart of Networking. And again, this is the 3rd edition. It is a great guidebook for anyone who has been networking for decades or even those starting out. I think you referenced that there have been some companies, some schools that have purchased this type of book. Who is this a good book for? Who did you write this for?
Um, I would say it's for anyone from the early stages of, I think college, I think every college graduate should read it. The University
Mhm.
of Washington's used it. Kennesaw State's used it. I've spoken to Emory, Georgia Tech, Georgia, Valdosta, University of Kentucky. I've been to a lot of colleges to speak, and I tell every, Georgia State, I tell every college student, if you graduate from this institution with less than 500 connections on LinkedIn from your professors, your classmates, famous alumni, this, that, and the other, then you need to pay your mom and daddy back every dime they spent for you being here because you wasted their money. I don't care how smart you are and how many degrees you get. If you don't have a network, you're going to be the smartest guy sitting at home without a job and without any prospects of a job. So I think college students, people just getting into the business world, and then I think people that have come along in their career. One day I spoke to, I think, the Technology Association of Georgia, to some group, I can't remember what it was. And about 3 months later, I bumped into an attorney, a fairly big name attorney in Atlanta. And he came over to me and he said, Ricky, I just want to tell you, I was at your meeting of TAG a couple of 3 months ago. And I thought, what the heck? I bought a copy of your book. I read your book. And he said, I just thought, I'm going to try a few of these things just for giggles. And this is a guy that didn't have to do that. Anyway, he said, I tried them. He said, I picked up 2 new clients. He said, I want to thank you very much. And I said, well, 2 new clients, I know what you charge per hour. I think I need a little bit more money for that book. I sold you the book too cheaply. And we laughed about it, what have you. But again, that's a great joy to feel that you were of some benefit to somebody. So again, I think people getting into the game, people who are going through a job transition, people who are looking for a job, or people who are looking to upgrade their job. I think that's another good opportunity. So here at the holidays, and I think the podcast is going to come out on the 10th of December, if I remember correctly. Anybody that you want to give a gift. See, to me, the greatest thing we can share with others is knowledge. And a book is a gift of knowledge. A book is a gift of love, whether it's my book or Norman Vincent Peale or Zig Ziglar or John Griscom or whoever. A book is a gift that can last for decades, and the impact can be very, very important. So if anybody wants a copy, it's available. And as you know, the book is on Barnes & Noble. It's on Amazon. I also have a Shopify account, and the web address is heartofnetworking.net, heartofnetworking.net. If you buy it through there, it's $5 cheaper, and I personally sign each and every copy of the book. I'll put in a signature, this, that, and the other. And whereas if you buy it from the Barnes & Noble or Amazon, it comes directly from them. They have books and they ship them to you. So I don't get the opportunity to personally, make a comment or best wishes or whatever the case might be. But anyway, anybody that's looking to improve their lot in life, and it doesn't have to be about business. I think networking or relationship creation is a better word to me, is good for people that live in a community, that are involved in their church or parish or synagogue or mosque. Any place that you're gathered with people, you want to you want to understand how to better connect with those individuals. And I think the book will help people do that.
Yes, and I really want to pull back to, when you were talking about college students. I think so many college students get out and think their degree is it. They think that the first company they work for, that's going to be it. But really, when you even choose your college, you are choosing your future network of people to connect with, and the ability to really use that as a platform for your career. I know the old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, you really find out that's true once you do get into the world of your career, and to be able to leverage that is really important. So Ricky, when we do think about those college students, they're very much on digital platforms. A lot of our generations that are in the workforce now have grown up on social media. How can we maintain authenticity in our networking events when we are in online spaces? What is your thought on that?
It's a different world. That's something I probably should have addressed a lot earlier. That's been the biggest change since I began my networking career. Originally, it was you keep everything on a Post-it note, or you had a little pocket secretary and you keep information in it, or a notebook on your desk. Computers changed all that, and eventually we had Outlook and Act and Sharkware and all the different contact management systems. Now we have it between LinkedIn. I've been in staffing for about the last 20 years. Everybody in the staffing industry used to have a database of 100,000 or a million or some big number of names that they would begin pulling resumes from. Now nobody's got a database. Everybody uses LinkedIn and Monster and all the different job boards to pull resumes, pretty much. But anyway, to me, the way to do it is to put out authentic information. So when you share on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, put out information that'll be helpful to others. And you'll find that many of these people will reach out to you. I get a note twice, 3 times, 4 times a week from somebody based on something I posted either on LinkedIn saying, I really did like that. Do you know anything more about that? Or where did you get that piece of information? And I'll go back and dig, and I saw it in a Wall Street Journal article or New York Times or the AJC or whatever the case may be. Again, finding out where people are going to be, reading, making sure that you create a footnote or create a link to anything that somebody posts that you want to be in your network or is already in your network, so that when they post something, it immediately comes on your screen and say, oh my gosh, I didn't know that Bill was interested in the Boys and Girls Clubs or Hands on Atlanta or the food bank or whatever. And it gives me a reason to say, thank you. I've been involved in the food bank for a long time myself. Don't you think that Kyle and his team are doing a great job? Again, it's just touching people on things that they care about. Yeah. And if you touch them on things that they care about, they're going to figure out a way to care about you.
Yeah, very true. And I think it gives us a point of conversation when we do have those networking talks, when we have those networking coffees, is finding out what people care about, what matter to them. Well, Ricky, this has been a bonus of all types of information to finish off our episodes on networking. And I know that if people would like to reach out to you to connect with you, that you are looking for how did they find you and what was the connection. So if people want to connect with you, where's the best place to do it?
I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm also on Instagram and a few others, but I don't really fool with those too often. But it's just Ricky Steele. And I'm the big ugly guy. You'll see my face on every single one of the pictures. Brace yourself on my Facebook, because I stay fairly neutral on many things on LinkedIn. On Facebook, I pretty much share a lot of things that are very maybe controversial to some degree, whether it's about politics or religion or this, that, or the other. But nonetheless, you're welcome to read it and connect. And then again, but when you do try to connect or you want to connect, try to put a note and say, I heard you on Lisa's program and would like to connect with you, because I do a lot of public speaking and I do a lot of posting. I get a lot of requests every single day. And unless you're someone that I either know, have met, we have a mutual connection. We have 15 people that are in LinkedIn that we're both first connections to, and they're good people that I know and trust. Or you're with a company that I've done business with or would like to do business with, I'm pretty much going to turn you down. If I don't think I can be of help to you, or there's potential you could be of help to me, then there's no reason us connecting, because I have a friend girl. My wife doesn't let me have girlfriends. So anyway, I've got a friend girl who has like 25 or 30,000 individual connections. And I said, why? And she said, I connect with anybody and everybody. I said, I don't understand the purpose of that, because I don't see how you're going to help 25,000 people or get help from them. But again, everybody, different strokes for different folks. To me, I want to connect with people that I can have a genuine, hopefully good relationship with. And we figure out ways that maybe we can help each other, or attend an event, or hear about an event. I post a lot about Jackie Chu, my dear friend who runs TEDx Atlanta, and the events she has. I post a lot about the Atlanta CEO Council. I post a lot about TAG. I post a lot about TechBridge, an organization that's having its 25th anniversary this year. So I post a lot about events because I want to help people find places where they can connect with people that could be of value to them over the long haul.
Well, Ricky, you just demonstrate there that the work that goes into networking is truly work, but it doesn't have to always be dull work. It can be fun. We can work and still have fun. So
No
I'd
question.
love to thank you for being with us today to offer your wisdom. Folks, if you do not yet have the Heart of Networking third edition, I don't care if you get the first two, that's fine. You've got to get this third edition. It is relevant for what we need today to have these authentic connections. So, Ricky, thank you so much for being on the show.
It was a privilege, Lisa. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, folks. So there you have it. We've got another example of someone who saw a need and was passionate about it, but not only just passionate, but he has really brought that into his purpose, because it's when we can connect our gifts with others in the world, when we feel fulfillment. Not only do we give a gift to others, but we also get a gift back to ourselves. And then, so until next week, go chase your passion. It will lead to your purpose and lead to that personal brand of integrity. That's how we find the joy in life on the way to our legendary self. See you next week.
Amen.